The moment that photo surfaced, everything changed. Not because Meghan Markle said anything, not because Prince Harry launched another legal challenge, and not because Buckingham Palace responded. No, the shock came from a single image that appeared online and then mysteriously vanished. One ordinary-looking photograph that suddenly raised a question so explosive it threatened to unravel years of arguments, millions of pounds in legal battles, and one of the most controversial claims the Sussexes have ever made. Because while Prince Harry spent years insisting that danger followed his family everywhere, Meghan quietly stepped into a situation that seemed to tell a very different story. For years, the public has heard the same warning repeated again and again. The United Kingdom was supposedly too dangerous. The risks were supposedly too high. Security was supposedly non-negotiable. Harry's legal team fought relentlessly to make that point. Courtrooms heard it, judges reviewed it. Television interviews amplified it. The message was clear. Without state-backed protection, bringing Meghan and the children into certain environments was simply not safe. Then came Chicago. Not a royal residence, not a secured event, not a controlled environment surrounded by layers of protection. Chicago, a major American city with millions of residents, countless strangers, and all the unpredictability that comes with public life. Yet there Meghan was. Alone, the details immediately caught attention. She boarded a plane without Harry. She arrived without an elaborate security spectacle. She attended a public religious event filled with more than 1,000 people. She sat among ordinary attendees. Cameras were present. Reporters were present. Families were present. And somehow, according to reports, the entire day unfolded without chaos, without panic, and without the dramatic security concerns that had dominated headlines for years. That alone would have sparked discussion. But then the photo appeared. A local television reporter posted a picture showing Meghan sitting nearby during the event. It looked casual, natural, almost ordinary. The kind of image that should have disappeared into the endless flood of social media content. Instead, it exploded because within hours, people started asking uncomfortable questions. Why was Meghan comfortable attending such a public gathering? Why was she smiling so casually in a crowded environment? Why did this trip appear so different from the image of constant danger that had been described in legal filings and interviews? And then something even stranger happened. The photo vanished. No explanation, no detailed statement, no public clarification, just gone. For critics, that deletion became a story all by itself. Suddenly, speculation erupted across social media. Was the post removed because it received too much attention? Did somebody request its removal? Was it simply a coincidence? Or had the image accidentally highlighted a contradiction nobody wanted people discussing? Questions multiplied faster than answers. Meanwhile, attention shifted back to Harry's long-running battle over security. People began revisiting old statements, old interviews, old court arguments. Every claim suddenly looked different when viewed beside Meghan's Chicago appearance. The timing made everything even harder to ignore. Almost exactly 1 year earlier, judges had rejected Harry's appeal regarding his security arrangements. The decision was a devastating setback. The arguments had been heard, the evidence had been considered. The outcome was clear. Yet 12 months later, Meghan appeared to be moving through a public setting with remarkable confidence. To supporters, it proved resilience. To critics, it raised questions. To gossip watchers, it was pure fuel. Because royal controversies survive on contradictions, and this one felt enormous. How could a family simultaneously present serious security concerns while also demonstrating apparent comfort in highly public environments? The debate exploded. Commentators began pulling apart every detail of the trip, the route, the location, the timing, the security arrangements. Even Meghan's demeanor became part of the conversation. Nothing escaped scrutiny. Every smile became evidence. Every photograph became a clue. Every deleted post became a mystery. Then another layer emerged. According to reports, the purpose of Meghan's visit involved a godson's first communion. On the surface, it sounded simple enough. A personal event, a family-style gathering, a private moment. But almost immediately, questions surfaced regarding the exact nature of that relationship. Who was the family? Why were names withheld? How close was the connection? And perhaps most importantly, why were some outlets describing Meghan with terminology that triggered debate about religious roles and church traditions? What should have been a straightforward human interest story suddenly became tangled in discussions about church customs, public relations strategy, media framing, and image management. The deeper people looked, the stranger everything seemed, because every answer created two new questions. Every clarification produced another contradiction. And while all of this unfolded, Harry remained largely absent from the narrative. That absence became its own talking point. Observers couldn't help noticing that the man who had spent years arguing about security wasn't standing beside Meghan during the trip. He wasn't photographed at the cathedral. He wasn't appearing alongside her in Chicago. Instead, Meghan was the visible figure. Meghan was the headline. Meghan was the image everyone discussed, and that image kept colliding with years of previous claims. The more commentators analyzed it, the more they framed the Chicago visit as something larger than a simple church attendance story. They portrayed it as a symbolic moment, a moment where reality appeared to clash with narrative, a moment where public behavior seemed to challenge public messaging. Whether that interpretation was fair or unfair almost stopped mattering, because perception had already taken over, and perception is often more powerful than facts in royal controversies. By the time mainstream outlets picked up the story, the discussion had evolved far beyond a weekend trip. It had become a debate about credibility, consistency, and whether the Sussex security narrative could survive another major public test. What transformed this story from a routine celebrity appearance into a full-blown royal controversy was not what Meghan did that day. It was what her actions appeared to say without her ever speaking. Because once the photographs circulated and once the details became public, critics immediately began lining up the Chicago trip beside Harry's years of warnings, and the comparison was impossible to ignore. Suddenly, people were no longer discussing a cathedral visit. They were discussing contradictions. They were discussing timing, and they were discussing whether one quiet weekend had accidentally exposed a deeper problem inside the Sussex narrative. The argument became brutally simple. If danger was truly so overwhelming that returning to Britain remained nearly impossible, why did Meghan appear comfortable entering a public environment filled with strangers in a city many commentators described as having significantly higher violent crime rates than London? That question spread across social media like wildfire. Supporters argued that the situations were completely different. Critics argued the opposite. But either way, the conversation was no longer under Sussex control. Then came another uncomfortable development. Commentators started revisiting every major security statement Harry had made since stepping away from royal duties. Old interviews resurfaced. Court testimony resurfaced. Headlines from previous years resurfaced. One after another, they flooded back into public discussion. And every time those statements appeared beside photographs from Chicago, the contrast grew harder to ignore. What made matters worse was the growing perception that Meghan seemed relaxed throughout the entire experience. There were no images suggesting panic, no visible signs of concern, no evidence of extraordinary precautions. Instead, the photographs showed a woman participating in what appeared to be a normal public event. To critics, that image became symbolic. It represented something they had been arguing for years. Whether they were right or wrong almost became secondary. The symbolism itself was enough. Meanwhile, questions about the deleted social media post refused to disappear. Why remove it? That simple question lingered over the entire story. People speculated endlessly. Some believed it was routine, others suspected outside pressure. Still, others argued it fit a larger pattern of carefully managed publicity. Nobody seemed able to agree, but everybody seemed interested. And in the royal gossip world, mystery is oxygen. Then another issue emerged. The description surrounding Meghan's role in the religious event generated debate about church traditions and terminology. Suddenly, what should have been a simple appearance became entangled with discussions about faith, protocol, public relations, and media messaging. Critics accused Sussex-friendly outlets of presenting a narrative that sounded warmer and more appealing than the actual details. Supporters dismissed those accusations as nitpicking, yet the argument itself kept the story alive, and that may have been the biggest problem of all, because every controversy kept bringing attention back to the same central contradiction: Harry's warnings, Meghan's actions. The more people compared the two, the more explosive the conversation became. By this point, some commentators were arguing that the Chicago weekend had become more damaging than any court ruling, not because it changed legal outcomes, not because it altered official policy, but because it created a visual narrative. And visual narratives are powerful. A courtroom judgment requires explanation. A photograph does not. One image of Meghan sitting comfortably among hundreds of strangers instantly communicated something millions of words could not, because perception has always been one of the most powerful forces surrounding royal stories. Once the public believes they have spotted a contradiction, that belief can become almost impossible to reverse. As the news cycle continued, the Chicago appearance began connecting with broader frustrations already surrounding Harry and Meghan. Critics pointed to previous disputes, previous interviews, previous accusations, and previous media campaigns. They argued that the cathedral visit fit into a larger pattern. Supporters pushed back, insisting insisting that every situation carried unique circumstances. The battle lines hardened once again, because whether people viewed the Chicago trip as evidence of independence, proof of confidence, a harmless family visit, or a devastating contradiction, one thing became impossible to deny. That weekend generated questions that still have not fully gone away. Questions about security, questions about credibility, questions about narrative versus reality. And perhaps that is why this story continues to fascinate people long after the service ended and the camera stopped rolling. The real controversy was never about a cathedral in Chicago. It was about what that cathedral visit appeared to reveal. A single weekend, a single photograph, and a single moment that left observers wondering whether the most damaging challenge to Harry's argument had not come from critics, judges, or palace insiders, but from Meghan herself.